Hi, my name is Richard Sirwa, coming to you to give you a special training on the C-surance short-term disability. What we'll do is we'll create a new company, and once the company is created, we will be creating some activities as far as short-term disability, generating some payments to pay for those short-term disability. So first, what we need to do is create a company. So we'll call this STD, Short-Term Disability and Invalidité Hebdomadaire Management Training. So policy number is going to be 2222. The carrier is going to be self-insured, so we will go with self-insured. And then we will say that the contract was issued on the 1st of January for 1 year. Once this is done, the rest of the steps are pretty easy. What we need to do is fill in the blanks, all the information needed that we need to. We could put in an email address if we need to. Then we go into division and classes. We're able to set up the different division, different classes. And so we've got an unlimited number of division, unlimited number of classes that we are able to assign. Now, obviously, what you can also do is add different contact resources that you will be able to access later on. And once this is done, of course, you are now able to access and assign that person to any of the activities. So these activities or these contacts will be assigned to a specific division. So if you've got multiple division, multiple classes, of course you will be able to keep track of all of those. If we move to the contract information, this is where we have established the contract period. We have a renewal date that is coming up. The language type is going to be English, for example, and the type is going to be new business. In this case, we could put in some estimate value of the contract. We will enable here the claim adjudication for this specific contract. Then, as far as the employees are concerned, we will be able to import a list of employees. But just before we do that, let's go here and make sure that we add the short-term disability coverage. So what we need to do is simply click on Add Short-Term Disability. And once this is done, then we are able to actually go in and create whatever coverage is needed. We could fill in all the information here as is presented, or we could go to a screen that will be probably a little bit easier to use, such as, for example, we will be able here to create a new movement effective on the 1st of January. And again, this is a new contract, and then we will be able here to say that this is a percentage. It's going to be 66.66% of, let's say, the first $1,000 of salary, or first $1,500 of salary, and then we're going to put in 50% of the second portion, which obviously what we could do is we could say for the excess, or we could put it at 3 level. So we could say, okay, the next 1,000 is going to be 50%, and finally the last portion is going to be 40% as needed. We are also able to determine if this is going to be a taxable benefit or non-taxable benefit. So obviously by simply clicking on the taxable benefit, it's going to be easy. Then we are able to throw in, let's say, $2,000 is the maximum per month without evidence, and we need $3,000 with evidence. We are also able here to say that we will be applying a 10% income tax for federal, and we'll put in a 13% income tax for provincial, and this is going to be for 52 weeks period. We are also able to put in the waiting period. So if there's a 3 months waiting period, or if they are none, then obviously we could throw in 0. We could then have a waiver of premium in days, and then define a termination date. So we'll establish termination date to be 75 years old or at retirement. We are also able to define here if it's going to be the next dollar, the next exact amount, or the next $10 as far as the benefit is concerned. We do have a possibility here of setting up the elimination period. So if there is an hospital accident, sickness, 1-day surgery, maternity, fatherhood, or whatever, we are able to establish the number of days. So for example, first 5 days are not going to be paid for maternity leave, and first 6 days for paternity leave. We then can establish the number of weeks that we'd like to apply benefit period. So we could say 20 weeks for the benefit period here. We could apply 12 weeks for maternity and apply 10 weeks for the paternity. Now, the next step is to define which portion of all this is going to be paid by whomever. So if we go into the general, we would like to say that the company is going to be the first payer, and the first payer will be paying, let's say, the first 18 weeks. So we're going to apply this, and now we know that for the general situation, the company is the first to be paying the bill, and it's going to be for 18 weeks. Then we will go for employment insurance, and the employment insurance will be for the extra 2 weeks as such. So we now have 18 plus 2 are the numbers of weeks that we have covered for the benefit period. Now let's take care also of the maternity. We're going to do the same thing. We're simply going to say, okay, the company is going to be paying for the first 10 weeks, and then we will add another 2 weeks to the employment insurance and DEP for, let's say, 2 weeks, and we approve of that. Then we'll go and do paternity, and paternity is going to be simply one payer is going to be the company, and it's going to be for the full 10 weeks. So obviously, once this is done, we have just created the contract condition. Now what is left to be done is to import the employees. So obviously I am able to import the list of employee from an existing Excel spreadsheet. So let's go and do the import of the employee from Excel. So we simply go in here, select a simple file in English, and we will simply import the list of employees from that Excel spreadsheet. So obviously we could import one employee, or we could import multiple employees. As we can see here, we do have different fields of information associated to each of those employees, and if I need to go further into detail, I will be able to simply go into any of the employee information. This was an enrollment, and the effective date is the 1st of January. And now if I want to go into the individual employee to throw in more details, more comments or whatnot, I am able to do that. So I'm able here to put in all the information about the different benefit here. I do have short-term disability here, which I could go into more details to review the pictures that we had before. We could put in the spouse, children, beneficiaries, and whatnot. Obviously, we understand that in the short-term disability, we do not need to have the information about spouses, children, and whatnot, but we understand that C-surance is able to handle all the other benefits, so we could do claims, drugs, dental, health, so whatever is needed. Furthermore, for the banking information, so we are able to define here if it's going to be a check that's going to be issued to Frank, or if we will be doing direct payment. If we do direct payment, obviously we will need to have all the information about the institution number, the transit number, the account number, and whatnot. So obviously we will need to fill those in if we want the system to issue payments directly to these employees. Now again, if there are some fields here that we'd like to get rid of, pretty easy. We simply go in and remove whatever fields that we don't care about. So we are able to simply keep this simple and reduce the number of fields that we have available. Once this is all done, obviously the next step is pretty easy. We just told the system that we would be handling claims, so let's go and do that. Just in order to help ourselves here, we should probably go back into the employee file and just ensure that we give ourselves client number that we will be able to use. So let's call this STD, and we'll do this for a couple of the employees so that we have a couple of STD. So we will remember that these are the clients we just created. Now what we'll do is we'll ask for certificate number, and we'll search for STD. So obviously by doing that, we get access to all three employees that are related, and we'll start with Claude Latour and do a claim for Claude. So as you saw, very easy. We made a search, we selected the one that we needed. The system now gives us the information about this client or this employee. We could decide to put create some other claims if we wanted to, or we could decide to put some notes or access to the information of the employee. So for example, here I could decide to create a note. It could be a priority note, and so we're going to add a priority note, and the priority note is read this before any payment. Okay, so whatever is the content here, you are able to create that note, and this is now part of the file of this specific employee. So this is done, and now what we need to do, we need to go into the STD management. So what we need to do now is simply say, okay, let's create a new disability, which is going to be for an accident. This is a regular standard cause of accident, and of course I'm able to throw in some description about what actually happened. And then we say, well, the disability started on January 27th. The system will look it up and say, okay, the last day of work proposed is the 26th. We have 53,000 in salary. The system is now able to tell us that we will be paying 18 weeks paid by the company, and then the other 2 weeks will be paid by employment insurance. So if we approve of this, the system will now do all the calculation for us and provide us with the numbers associated to this contract, and we will now have the information here. So obviously if we double click on the first item, we see that yes, we do have 4 weeks of payments that are associated to this, because these are the 4 weeks prior to today's date, or prior to the first week of payment. We do have the gross amount, we have the federal and provincial deduction, as well as the net benefit, which includes of course the total of the actual check that we will be issuing for this employee. Now we could also decide to go into this further and say, okay, let's add an advance. So let's do a $300 advance to this account. So we could go ahead and say we want to add $300 to this specific payment. So now we just added $300 to the advance payments. So obviously now the amount for that specific check here is going to be $823. Again, we could decide to adjust all these information as we go along, and of course we have 15 weeks total, including of course the fact that the first week included 4 periods. So obviously if we had 4 periods, the total of the 4 period plus the first one is going to provide us with the total number of checks, which were 18 weeks. So once this is done, pretty easy, as we saw, we are now able to go into the system and make a request for the payment. So we go into the STD here, and we're going to say, okay, let's make a request effective, let's say, on the 27th of January to February 27th, and we're going to ask for the list. And of course we see here that we do have a check for $2,094 to be issued to Claude Latour. So now what we'll do is we'll go into the next step and authorize this payment. So we will be authorizing the payment again up to the 27th, and we will simply see the amount. Okay, so we do here see that the check for $2,094 is right there. So we will now make a request for payment. So the system will now transfer this to the bank account. Okay, so the system is now telling us that we are missing a bank account. So since we are missing a bank account, what we'll do is we'll simply go ahead and assign a bank account to this particular group. So to do that, what we need to do is simply go into the $ here and go into the setting, and then we'll go into the account configuration. We will assign this particular client. So we will assign this check or this bank account. Okay, so self-insured or tout assuré, and then we will assign this contract as needed. So we will go and find the STD account, that specific case. Okay, so effective date where we start paying is going to be the 18th, or let's say we'll put it as the 1st of January, which is the date of the start of the bank account. And then we will be using the bank account compte de l'assureur. So now that we have assigned that, if we go back to our payment assignment here, obviously the system will now allow us to make the proper payment. Okay, so we make a request for payment. The request for payment is now transferred to the payable. So now we will be able to go into the bank account and ask for the payment of this particular employee that had a Actually, what we could do is simply ask for the STD checks here, and that will reduce the number of transactions that we are able to see. And we find here Claude Latour at the bottom as being the one that we need to make a payment for. So we will authorize this payment. So obviously I hit the control button here to highlight this case. Then I press on authorize. I will be authorizing this check. The system reminds me that I'm short of money in my bank account, so I should take care of that before I go any further. And once this is done, obviously the next step is simply to get the check printed. So let's print the check, and the check number is going to be 1090. And there it goes. The system is now producing the information that we need and spitting out a check that we are able to give to the employee or send to the employee. So obviously, if we had entered the name, address information and postal code ready to be put into the envelope. And of course, we have all the details here about the payment. Since the employee is French or English, well, in this case, he's English, so the system, of course, gave us the information here in English. We have all the information about the federal and provincial deduction, the net benefit that is being paid, what is the period of time that is being used. So basically, this gives us a quick rundown about how this system works and provides you with the basic information about how to do short-term disability management. So please do not hesitate in calling the C-surance services if you need additional training on this process. Thank you. Have a great day.